Hey everybody, I'm Jay Jones,
And I'm LT.
and we are the Dose Offensive Gentlemen. Now let's talk about some shit. All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today for a special edition of DOG. We're going to be covering a very topic that's very near and dear to our hearts or assholes, depending on how you want to phrase it. The new Star Wars came out, as you guys, I'm sure you know. The Last Jedi. LT was not impressed, so
No.
I'm sure we'll get his words shortly. But before we get into that, in the very traditional fashion that we are making here at DOG, we are drinking. And what are we drinking, LT?
All right. So this week on Bartender Weekly, we are going to, I guess, would say I guess would be our favorite Scotch at the moment, or at least it's mine.
It's top 5. I say it's top 3.
I think
easily.
it's my favorite at the moment. My favorite drinking Scotch, and that's the Glen Deveron 16-year. So just a little background on the Glen Deveron. From the site, it says, Glen Deveron, Scotland's most easterly distillery, lies on the rugged coast of the northeast Scotland by the banks of the River Deveron. The coastal landscape lies within the Highland region. For single malt whiskey, Glen Deveron crafts its malts in a traditional way using copper pot stills, fine malted barley, and pure spring water.
Pure spring water. Now, also on the website, it says this is part of the Royal Bird Collection, where they mature our whiskeys using generous amounts of fine sherry oak cask to produce a fuller and fruitier taste. The subtle taste is marked by flavors of fine toasted cereals and apple. I guess you could taste a little bit of apple.
You definitely taste the apple.
As the whiskey matures, it is joined by more complex notes of roasted nuts, exotic fruits, and eucalyptus. Ooh, maybe that's why we like it so much. The extended maturation, of these malts received in cask. The youngest is 16 years, then 20 years, and all the way up to 30 year. I have tried the 20 year. I've had a bottle. I think I'm gone. I think it's gone now.
I bought it for
I think it's gone now. I know it was a gift.
Yes,
It was delicious.
it was.
You also drank half of my gift.
That is true.
Yeah, but we have yet to try the 30 year, which I think we could use that for a very special occasion.
Well, given that's what that bottle goes for, 200 euros right now.
Yeah, and by the looks on the pictures, it's much smaller.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, man, so the 30 year is the most expensive in the smallest bottle.
Hey, man.
Yeah,
Hey.
I guess good things go in small packages. So,
well, that's what she tells me.
Jesus. So to kick this off, we're gonna be talking about Star Wars, and so I propose a toast because I'm gonna need a drink to get through this movie. So the toast, here's the panties. They're not the best thing in the world, but damn close to it.
Cheers to that.
Oh yeah,
Smooth. Just smooth. Yeah, that is like really, really smooth, I think. So that is why this is one of our top 3, top 5 easily.
It's
of ours.
It's currently my favorite. Like, that's not saying that is the absolute best, but like if I'm gonna go out and say, hey, I need a Scotch real quick, or I just want something to drink on that I know for sure is a known good, I'm gonna pick this.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a staple. It's a mainstay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one we had on last time, the Double Wood 12,
Yeah.
that is quickly rising in my top 5. That was really good. I'd like to have that again. Okay, so a little bit more about the whiskey. It is from the Macduff Distillery, which is like I said earlier, the easternmost distillery in Scotland, and it is way east of Inverness, which we talked about last time.
Yes.
But it's right on the River Deveron, also on the coast of the North Sea, so North Sea and the River Deveron. And it's actually had a lot of history of the name. So the name is constantly bounced between the McDuff Distillery and the Glen Deveron Distillery. So that kind of caused us a bit of confusion when we were doing some research on it.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure. We weren't sure if it was actually a thing because there's also another distillery found that's called the Deveron. So that added to the confusion as well, and it's not associated with them. But yeah, so the names bounce back and forth, and then eventually it has been purchased by Dewar and Sons.
Yeah, John Dewars and Sons. Yeah.
Dewars. You say Dewars or Dewar?
I say Dewars. Dewar is like almost
Dewar.
French, which I wouldn't make those guys French.
Dewar. Okay, John Dewar. Sounds too much like John Deere. But Dewar and Sons and the Glen Deveron 16, the Royal Burr collection. I think is probably one of their best that they come up, but they actually have several whiskeys that I'm pretty sure we're going to get to at some point.
Oh, yes, we will. Oh, yes, we will. All right. And also, as just like last time, whenever you hear a clink, that means that we're drinking because of the metal cubes in our glasses, keeping it nice and chilled. But you should be drinking with us. You really, really should, in order to appreciate this podcast and all of its tender glory. Also, we want to know what you guys want us to drink. What liquors, what cocktails. We are. I don't want to say full blown alcoholics, but we are functioning alcoholics.
No, I'm a high functioning drunk.
High functioning drunk.
Yeah,
okay,
alcoholics have to go to meetings. So the difference between an alcoholic and a drunk is that an alcoholic needs to drink. A drunk wants to drink.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yes.
I could see that. That definitely describes us.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah,
because we want to drink.
That's why we drink every podcast.
We don't need to do it.
I know we want to. Yeah, I think I enjoy the Bartender Weekly segments more than the actual podcast.
Well, that helps us get us in mood for the podcast.
Oh, it definitely lubricates. All right. So, like we said earlier, guys, we are going to be doing a special Star Wars theme right now. So back in December, the Star Wars The Last Jedi came out, and it had actually hugely mixed reviews because critics gave it a very, very high score, and user ratings gave it a very, very low score.
Yep.
Which, after watching it from being a definite Star Wars head myself, because
let's really describe, because a lot of the criticism to the negative critiques of this movie or negative reviews of this movie are people going, like, oh, they're not real fans, or they're trying to sit there and dismiss people, and I'm like,
well, who's trying to dismiss who?
Well, you have the backers, you have Disney and Rian Johnson, and others trying to dismiss criticism as upset fanboys and stuff like that, and even Kevin Smith weighed in on this argument here recently, basically saying that the quote unquote fans. Using it in a negative light, or the reason they don't like The Last Jedi is because it didn't meet their expectations, and not really stepping back and seeing like, no, this is actually a very poorly written movie.
I agree. Even as a part of a trilogy, it didn't fulfill that second. It didn't so as a part of a trilogy, I get it. There's still more answers to the questions that have been raised during this trilogy, but I didn't see
what
that
questions were answered. What other than
and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's still time in the trilogy to answer. Like, there's still a third one.
Yeah.
To wrap everything up nice and neatly, which I don't see them happening because this was their chance to have everything as a clean slate. They essentially have separated themselves off from the entire. I will say prequels, the entire 7 movies previous, because now there's no Leia, there's no Skywalker, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So now they're all on their own. But there was just a lot a lot wrong with this. And I actually have a list that I want to go down, and it all kind of starts with the last movie. So, let me kind of run through that. So, recap of the character development, because that's a big crutch for me. Is that there's no character development in any series, any movie, anything, you automatically lost my interest, and I think it's shit. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have like a person who's supposed to be a badass, and he's not a badass, and he never grows to be a badass. It hurts, and I don't want to watch it. Right? That's like watching Die Hard, and John McClane is just stuck in the fucking vent. Right? So, recap of character development from TFA. So, essentially, Rey is a god and has no character development. She doesn't learn how to use the Force. She doesn't know how to do anything. She just knows how to fight. Now. And yeah. But like, there's no kind of montage moment where it's like she gets it. You know, there's none of that kind of like inner thinking or anything like that. You never see that. And that kind of makes her a flawed character, in my opinion.
Well,
and just written poorly.
That's generally what we, and I know people bandy this about, but that was the term most people use is a Mary Sue. The Mary Sue character is the character that doesn't really, is good at everything, doesn't really face any hardships or any true challenges. And
right.
The problem with such a character, and there's a male, I think it's called, what do they call it, a Gary Suss or something like that for the male character, but characters like that are never interesting. They usually don't last long because it's kind of one of the problems. Like I usually call it the Superman problem, right? How do you make Superman an interesting character when everything you build around Superman makes him unbeatable, right?
Yeah, you have to have some kind of weakness or crucible moment.
Right, you have to have something. And remember, the only reason that kryptonite was introduced as Superman's weakness is because the people who were doing a radio show needed a break, so they're like, oh, we need something to sideline him for a while, so we're gonna invent kryptonite so we can get a break. But if that wouldn't have happened, Superman would have been, a very uninteresting character.
Yeah, much like Rey.
Yes.
Also, Finn I thought was the only character with an actual story.
Yeah,
it showed him as and he's like essentially they try to make him a main character, but he's kind of like a sidekick. Because I mean he's a non-Force user. He's like essentially the Han Solo equivalent, right? I mean let's talk about it. He's supposed to be the Han Solo.
I wouldn't even say that. So I would probably put Poe Dameron as the Han Solo, the roguish, hothead sort of guy. The thing I had, so the problem I had with the Force Awakens is that Finn was used, and don't get me wrong, I was actually really excited to see Finn because I wanted to hear his story.
Yeah, and I thought his story was actually really interesting as like a defector, like because you actually see his struggle, him not wanting to go through with the murder of innocent people, and then his he defects and releases Poe, and then they escape and he tries to join the Resistance. Like he actually has an arc. He actually has the dilemma. He actually has all these character building moments, and you don't see that
until. So I say that
you don't see that with Rey.
Until he meets Rey, right? Because
because that's when he gets into her story arc.
Right,
though,
he becomes her purse puppy, right?
The sidekick, yeah.
Not just the sidekick,
the bumbling sidekick.
It's just that he is I wouldn't say say bumbling.
He was pretty bumbling.
He was a bumbling. So he meets Rey. Before like the story between him and Poe was really interesting. Like you saw him bond. Just like everything you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But when he meets Rey, it's like okay, well now it's Rey time to shine, and he's gonna be the purse puppy. And I'm thinking because think about it. Even when they get in the fight, the famous traitor. Fight and everything like that. That was cool because it showed him actually having a struggle in the fight. Think about Rey. Rey just picked up a blaster a couple of scenes ago, and then she's already just taking people out. And I'm
when Han Solo asked her, do you know how to use that thing? Yeah, I know how to use it. And then he had to correct her, don't fucking point that thing at me, right? You should know how to use this. Definitely, but I mean that's the kind of the character development is so hidden and it's so internalized. I think that the viewers aren't able to see it. It's just how did you all of a sudden become extremely proficient in lightsaber combat.
Yeah.
So anyway, keep moving down that list. So also from The Force Awakens, Snoke, right? So Snoke is the overarching Darth Sidious, or the overarching like
The
top
Palpatine.
dog, right? The Palpatine-esque figure. And you know nothing about him, which is cool because it definitely, you should be learning about him throughout the trilogy, I thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, that did not happen much. You didn't learn anything about him in the sequel, or in the Last Jedi. And then also you learn that Kylo is conflicted between light and dark, which I thought that was a very interesting storyline because it allowed him a very dynamic range.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So did I like the character of Kylo Ren? That's debatable. I think it allowed a lot of character development for him because he can go either way and have a really interesting story.
So I liked Kylo Ren in
Yeah.
The Force Awakens because so when you first get introduced to Kylo Ren, he does something that like no Jedi had ever been seen doing, right? So which seems like when he stops the bolt in midair.
Yeah, that was a pretty badass move.
Yeah, that was a pretty badass move. And so and this is where I'm gonna have a nitpick in the Last Jedi. Kylo Ren pulling off that stunt, right? That power with the Force seems plausible. That seems like, okay, within the realm of the Force.
Yeah, because you can force grab.
Yeah,
why can't you force hold? Kind of thing.
So it's like that makes sense. And it's like the fact that it's like, oh, you know what? He did that, and he did it like I do this shit all the time.
Yeah, like very nonchalantly. Yeah.
He's like, I do this shit all the time. So it made sense. So it like showed, it set him up already automatically like, whoa, this is definitely someone to look out for. Like this is your bad dude. Like this is our new Vader, and he ain't no one to fuck with. So that was at the start of that made Kylo Ren, a very interesting thing. And the fact that he was conflicted was also because, like, when you realize, okay, he's Han and Leia's son, and now you're like, oh man, you're more interested because, okay, why is he on the dark side? And the fact that he's struggling with this, like some people are like, I didn't like the temper tantrums. I'm like, yeah, some of them were kind of childish, but the fact that this dude is really conflicted, like he idolizes his grandfather, he's a Skywalker. Skywalker family. So what is it? What made him turn this way? So that would made him interesting to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. But him being conflicted, and then you start realizing that he was part of Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Academy, and you're like, okay, they're dropping hints about his backstory and what happened and everything like that. That part made it really interesting to me because going into the Jedi Academy, you imagine that he was never tempted by the dark side, right? So he's been essentially the generic Force user. Then he goes into the Jedi Academy, starts learning the light side, and then it's when he's tempted with the dark side, I guess, when in the next movie they start saying that Snoke already had him or whatever like that.
Yeah,
they didn't explain how or why or anything like that, and that I think that was a problem for me because it was a loop that just didn't end or didn't close correctly. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I have a problem when it's like character development on all sides, especially with like people that are supposed to be badasses. It's like, but how did you become Snoke? How did you become like the leader of the First Order? Which anyway, that's gonna come in my next little part. So now we're gonna go to the Last Jedi section. So my problem with The Last Jedi was picks up right where Force Awakens left off, which I thought was good because I didn't want any kind of time difference where magic could have happened, right? Luke said he would teach Rey and then didn't teach her anything at all. And yet she's still a badass and knows how to use the Force, right? So all he did was sit her on a fucking stone and quote unquote teach her how to reach out to the Force and see how things were connected, right? that's not really a teaching moment, right? It's because there's also a moment where she is essentially using a rock as a training dummy with her bow staff, and kind of going through the motions of fighting and exercising, things like that. And then she has the bright idea to pick up the lightsaber and practice with that, which she looks extremely clumsy and like she doesn't know what she's doing. And the whole time, Luke Skywalker is right behind her, staring at her, and does nothing. He doesn't instruct her, he doesn't do anything, and he just walks off. And that's the moment that she sees of him walking away. Excuse me. And it's just one of those moments where there should have been some kind of mentoring. I mean, like, even if it was something or some kind of direction, the only thing he said to her was, "You were tempted by the dark side and you didn't even resist." And then he was instantly afraid of her, right? I mean, he essentially in that part.
I need you to get through your list so I can get.
Okay. So
I really need
there
you to
was
hurry
that
up.
part. Also, the Rose, the character, was a completely pointless character. She absolutely played zero role in anything except stopping Finn from leaving. That's the only thing she quote unquote stopped. Yeah. But her entire story arc, and also the way that she sabotaged Finn's self-sacrifice moment to save him, and thus potentially killing everyone else. And then her quote was, "This is how we win, by saving what we love." And that was complete horseshit.
Freaking retarded.
That is complete horseshit, because literally you just potentially killed everyone that you were trying to save. But my real problem with that was that they were trying to push for a love interest for him, and there was no other indication throughout their entire interaction that there was.
They sort of acknowledge that too, because remember when she tries to kiss him, he goes
like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah, he was
right,
like, yeah. So I think that was kind of, they acknowledged that didn't happen. Maybe someone wrote it in at the last part. Goes, shit, we never really hinted at this at all.
And again, shitty writing, right? Yeah. Shitty writing. Also, Leia can now use the Force and fly through space, which I know you have a huge problem with this. My problem with it is that, I know, I see your face. My problem with it is that Leia has been known to be quote unquote Force sensitive, like premonition or thinking that things are going to go a certain way, things like that. But she has not actively used the Force in an actual kind of force grab or force push kind of way. So to see it on this magnitude, this scale, with no other kind of what am I thinking? The
I guess no foreshadowing.
Yeah, pre-established. Pre-established moments. Like, it was just like, how the fuck did you just do that right now? Like, yeah, we get it, you're Darth Vader's kid, but like, it was never shown that you could do this now. Which that was kind of and not only that, but also survive in space. That was kind of a problem for me. Then also Poe taking command of the rescue efforts because the other commander, or the new commander, failed. That created an entire story arc that was entirely pointless. That created the casino scene, which is pointless. They went to look for a hacker who they didn't find, and instead found Benicio del Toro's character, who he then it was just a Charlie Fox clusterfuck the entire way. The best part about that was Finn's fight with Phasma, and that was it. And that was like 2 seconds worth. That wasn't even long. But again, entirely pointless in my opinion. And Snoke should have been much more badass. I think he should not have gone out like a little bitch. And I would have liked to have known any kind of story arc about him and how he came to power, or how he turned Kylo Ren, or things like that. But instead, you saw very, very little. And also, during that scene where Snoke dies and Kylo Ren and Rey have this not dueling, but like where they fight the Royal Guards together, right? That should have been a badass scene. I thought that was horribly choreographed.
It was terribly choreographed.
Horribly choreographed because, one,
But I think that's the limitation of the actors, to be honest, because it looked like the guardsmen who were playing the guards, they were probably very good and well versed stuntmen. I think the actors themselves were not capable of actually pulling off the choreography.
And that makes sense because, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense because all the action that Rey's been in has been very stiff, very like non-martial art, you know.
You could tell she's not really adept at this.
Yeah, which really really hurts, I think.
Which should have played so a good writer or a good director should have seen that, like, you know what, she's really not good at this. We should probably make this as part of her character development. You know,
and if they would have done that, that would have been perfect.
That would have probably made her a more likable character. Was because Rey is actually, you know, despite the little girls and everyone's like, oh, we gotta know the Rey now. It's like most people are not big Rey fans because they don't. They see her as, you know, this you know, Deus Ex Machina, where she's able to do anything she wants just because she wants to do it, and it's like, okay. Whereas, you know, we're gonna compare her to the lead character of the original trilogy, which is Luke, who had to struggle. You know, you saw his hero's journey throughout that. But I'm gonna take this I'm gonna take this because I got a lot, and I told you I was prepared for this podcast, and you weren't listening. So let's start at the beginning of this whole thing and understand where we're gonna break this down and why I had a problem with the movie. All right, so first off, opening scene. You know, now granted, some people are like, "Oh, I didn't like the prank call that Poe Dameron did to the." You know, to the First Order. But I was like, that was
I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was a pretty good thing. But here's the thing. Leia was wrong. Leia was wrong from the beginning. Not only did Poe lead an effective assault, when they brought in the Dreadnought, okay, you had a chance to kill it, destroy this enemy weapon. She should have supported that wholeheartedly because that is a weapon that's going to continue to chase you, right?
Right.
So let's really be honest. So if we go with the whole thing. And if you guys didn't know already, spoilers. If the First Order is able to track them to light space through hyperspace, or you know,
track through hyperspace. Yeah,
they are. If that dreadnought showed up to chase him, game over. Because they already said the dreadnought was like one of the baddest ships in the First Order's fleet.
Yeah, I think they called it a fleet killer.
Yeah, so it'd have been game over. So Poe had a way to destroy this thing to save the fleet. Yeah, it's going to take heavy damages because it's a heavy target. It's a high-risk target, and it's a high-value target. So any good commander worth their salt is going to be like, hey, this is probably going to be one of those calculated risks. Now, let's talk about this scene, the assault on the Dreadnought. One, when are you going to learn to fly in formation where if one ship gets blown up, it's not close enough to another ship to get blown up also? That gave me some problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's military tactics, and that's something that I'm just going to give to them because they're trying to build the drama factor.
Nah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
I am not giving them any military. I am not giving them any leeway on this.
They should have plenty of resources on how that would actually theoretically turn out, because, I mean, we don't know about space battles, but theoretically, hey, no, you don't want these guys to be in this kind of formation, because if this guy goes down and he falls this way, he's going to create a domino effect and take out your entire fucking bombers.
So, and here's another thing, gravity in space. All right? So the bombers, you know, I know there've been some trying to explain it away after the movie came out and after the criticism came, but when you watch the movie, what they're trying to say doesn't make sense. So the bombers come, when they get in range, they open their bombs doors and they release the bombs, and the bombs fall out of the ship.
With gravity
and fall towards the Dreadnought.
Holy shit, I did not even think about that.
Yes, they fall with gravity. I told you I was prepared for this, right? So they fall. I'm like, okay, where the hell do you get gravity in space? They weren't that close to a planet that gravity would affect them like that, like they were in the atmosphere. So the bombs are falling out. Now they're trying to say, "Oh, they're magnetic." I was like, "Well, why did they magnetize to the other ships that were around them?" All of them went straight to the dreadnought. So you had the gravity in space, all right, and people falling, and okay, the gravity in ships, whatever. But yeah, so we had that. When the ships were getting destroyed, right? Notice when they're flying, and then boom, they get blown up. They dive down. They start falling down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're in gravity.
Holy shit, man! My entire glass ceiling has now been shattered. Like
Yeah.
I can't look at that anymore.
So
like the same
that
way.
was one. Leia was wrong. Leia should have took the advantage to back Poe up and destroy the dreadnought, because if the dreadnought caught up with them, that's the end of the ship. That's the end of the fleet. And as you find out later, they can track them. So now moving on to the next part, of which I thought was retarded, and I'm going to use that word a lot. So the whole premise, the whole main plot, or main form of tension for this movie was the fact that the Resistance finds out that they can be tracked through hyperspace, and and they're running out of fuel. So their big plan was, we're going to stay outside the range of the Star Destroyer, the main battle cruiser's guns, until we can figure out a way out of this, right? Now, they mention this. It doesn't make sense, but they mention it to try to CYA, but they go, if we get out too far, they're going to pull their fighters back. Why? Oh, because they won't have supports of the guns. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all, because you've seen the fighters able to do damage enough to their cruisers, enough to take them down. So, the shields were non-consistent in this. In some scenes, you would see the fighters fire on, or even the ships take fire, and the shields would absorb the shock. But then, for instance, when we were going to get to the Mary Poppins scene, there was no shield at all. So shields were very inconsistent in this thing. But it didn't make sense that this whole movie was about, oh, we're going to fly just out of range of their guns, and while our fuel is dwindling down, and we're going to hatch this plan.
Now to kind of clarify that, they weren't going at warp speed. They were just moving at like normal full throttle speed for them. But another plot hole for that is that just because it's full speed for that cruiser doesn't mean that the giant fucking one behind them couldn't go a little bit faster.
Yeah, because that didn't even make sense. Of like, wait a minute, they've never really established that they could actually outrun these other ships. And I'm pretty sure if the other ships were presumably fully fueled, why didn't they just try to go faster and close in, or just send freaking fighters to harass them enough that they use up their energy, break their shields down, destroy their engines? They're going to fall back enough time, enough so that they could get into the range of the guns and blow them up. Because what we did have is like, it was just like a waiting game. Like, oh, we're running out of fuel. We're falling back. All right, evacuate. And then the First Order blows up that ship. But that is the main point of tension during this movie. So we get to the Mary Poppins scene. Kylo Ren comes in. He senses his mother on the ship, and he's about to blow the bridge. But at the last moment, he can't do it. But another TIE fighter comes in and blows the bridge, which kills Admiral Akbar off screen. You don't even get to see him die. Mr. It's a trap. And some people go, well, what was his contribution? He led the assault on the Death Star, you stupid motherfucker. Yeah. All right. So
he's an established character in the timeline.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, he's more than it's a trap. Remember, he was commanding that assault. Anyway, so
also I think Rogue One, he made an appearance, right? Mm-hmm. As one of the leaders of the assault on the the planet with the shield around it. I forget the name of it. Anyway, so he is an established character, and he died without any kind of
No ceremony. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh, in passing, oh, fish guy, he died. But this goes to the next scene, and one where we already brought up is the Mary Poppins scene. So in this scene, Leia is floating in space, and it's sad and it's tragic, and you see her starting to ice over, and you're knowing it's coming to the end. And I think it was more sad and tragic as we know. Excuse me. In real life, Carrie Fisher passed away.
Yeah, and I think that would have been a great moment to say, all right, cool, that was the moment.
Leia's
no longer with us, because the way they led up to it made you think that's how it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then the fact that essentially they brought her back.
Yeah. So when it seemed like all hope is lost, Leia opens her eyes and she reaches out to the forest and she flies Mary Poppins style through space
to the airlock. They open the airlock and then she's safe.
She's safe and she collapses and goes into a coma. So the thing I have a problem with that is, so where I mentioned that, yes, it's good to see new Force abilities, but from what we knew of the Force, from the movies and everything that came up, and I'll even put in like the cartoons and stuff like that, all the things that we know that are canon leading up to this point, has never said, hey, you know what you can do if you're a Jedi? You could fly through space. You could survive in space. Now, we could come up with a lot of, I guess there's going to be the source of debate amongst the geeks and nerds for a long time. But I don't know. It just seemed, and two, that was like a weirdly shot scene. It just looked.
It was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, it just looked like a really weirdly shot scene. So you had that. Then we get to. Then this is where I personally think where a lot of the stupidity. I don't want to keep saying that, but a lot of the inconsistencies in the movies that just didn't make sense come in. But while this is going on, I'm gonna jump real quick over to the Luke and Rey situation. One, why Luke Skywalker didn't work in this. Okay, so a lot of people try to explain away that Luke, Obi-Wan went into hiding and Yoda went into hiding. And I'm like, there were kind of different situations because one, you had Order 66 out. So they were actively being hunted. All right. Actively being hunted. So that is why they went into hiding. And two, they were also going in hiding to protect Luke and Leia. Remember, Obi-Wan was there also to look over Luke until he was ready to fight the Empire, right? And Leia was given to the Organos. So it's not the same thing. Luke, where is Yoda and Obi-Wan went into hiding to save and prepare to fight the Resistance. Luke abandoned his friends. Luke abandoned everybody and ran away.
Yeah, I get that. I noticed that, and I didn't agree with it either. But after they had the flashback sequences, and they showed that he feared becoming, to the dark side and all that. And then when they showed that he actually cut himself off from the Force completely, which it has its precedence, that made me a little bit more accepting of that.
Yeah,
because I was like,
not here.
Yeah, I was just like, I was like, he was scared. He didn't want to, the sins of the father. He didn't want to do that. And now, he's trying to at least kind of achieve the balance because he didn't want to go over to the dark side. So he's taking himself out of the equation.
So it wasn't even so much about going to the dark side. So let's look at what caused, Kylo. So one of the good points I'll point out about the Last Jedi is that it gave you a story of why Ben Solo went over to the dark side, or what helped push him to go seek the dark side. And that was Luke was telling the story that he sensed the dark side rising in Ben Solo, and not wanting to deal with it, he sneaks into his room, and he was going to kill Ben Solo, his nephew, in his sleep. Now, they also say that he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. But he actually lit up his lightsaber. He had it ready, and then came to his senses and turned it off. But by that time, Ben saw that what he was going to do and retaliated.
Well, Luke Skywalker even stated, for a split second, he had that thought, like, I could just stop this now, and then he immediately regretted it. And I think that illustrated nicely, actually, the constant struggle between the light and the dark, and how easy it was to slip into the dark. But again, that was only kind of a very, very small moment of that. So it didn't really expand or it didn't really execute well after that.
It didn't really execute. Like, it was good that it gave Kylo Ren some more of a backstory so you could understand where he came from. I think it really was a mischaracterization of Luke Skywalker, and two, for him to run away from his friends. And when I say friends, remember, he abandoned his sister in this as well. So he abandoned his sister, his brother-in-law, and of course he was about to kill his nephew. So he cuts himself off, but he's talking about cutting himself off, but he goes to a Jedi temple, a sacred Jedi area. He didn't go to, like, in the middle of nowhere. Think about this. He runs away because he doesn't want to be around the Jedi anymore, but he goes to a sacred Jedi area.
Yep.
All right. So that kind of makes you weird. And I'm not even gonna go, like, I don't even know how to explain the blue milk and the fishing.
Oh, well, I get that. That's just like survival. Like, I'll just be like, okay, that's the the natural habitat, and that's how he survives.
I think
okay,
that was
cool.
relief.
There was a lot of slapstick humor that I thought was funny, but I was like, I don't want this in my movie.
Well, no, because, like, the scene. So I will tell you, one of the parts I liked was when Rey is when they cut back to Rey holding out the lightsaber to Luke. And
he just tossed it,
and he grabs it and he just tossed it. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, I thought that was great, actually, because that's
awesome.
exactly what I wanted to see. Actually, I wanted to see him be like, and
yeah,
what do you want? Go away.
So the thing, so I don't think that when I say this doesn't seem like the Luke Skywalker we knew, and I think a lot of people, hell, even Mark Hamill himself had a problem way Luke was portrayed.
He did, and now afterwards, I can see that because after playing, after playing Battlefront 2, like the nerd that I am, and seeing his contribution to the story, Luke Skywalker, you see a very kind of very balanced individual, and he's just like, I'm kind of bipartisan in this, like, I didn't kill you guys because you didn't shoot at me, so I don't really care about you, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That was the sense that I got from his character. But to see also in the books that I've read, like, all this is now non-canon, which I fucking hate. Like in the Thrawn trilogy, where he had a very, again, a very balanced demeanor. He had in that trilogy, you had Mara Jade, who was trying to kill him the entire time, mm-hmm. and he was very nonchalant about it. He was like, "Well, you can kill me whenever you want,
now
but
you're about to make me go on a different tangent."
I know, no. We're gonna stay on this one, but essentially, you have all that character development that led up to this point, and now all of a sudden, because of this one incident, he shut himself off, and then, like you said, goes into the Jedi Temple. Then what happens at the Jedi Temple, the Jedi outpost or whatever? Because I also had a problem with the Yoda cameo, and I was just like, no other Force spirit has shown themselves to be so powerful as to call down lightning.
Yeah, and it just so that was another thing too, because maybe, and I'm actually taking a stretch with this one, that this is a callback to when Kenobi said in the first one, if you strike me down, I'll rise more powerful than you ever imagined. But then that also makes you wonder, what's the downside to being a Jedi ghost? Like, why don't you
Why doesn't all Jedi become
just
ghosts?
come ghost if you can still do it? Like, yo, I'm a ghost, but look at this motherfucker. Lightning, bitch. It doesn't. It should have. It does. That doesn't kind of make sense. Like, if being the ghost form of a former Jedi is that powerful and can do that, then yeah, no Jedi should ever fear dying and coming back as a ghost, because they're gonna like, look, motherfucker, I still run shit around here.
Well, not just dying, but like the body evaporating.
Yeah.
Like that's always kind of like eluded me. Like I got it with Obi-Wan and Yoda and now even Luke, but and when they did that with Anakin, Darth Vader,
Yeah.
like
He didn't
evaporate.
Yeah.
He just came back as his younger self.
Yeah. Well, he was older, and then in the
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like his ghost came back, and he was like from episode 3 or something like that. Like before he turned.
no, so in the but that was on the special editions.
Yeah, well, it's canon. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucas. Yeah. So all right, getting back to the crappy stuff. So the another part. So getting back to the fleet and their situation. Meanwhile, back at the fleet, so we're introduced to who is lovingly referred to as purple haired bitch, Vice Admiral Holdo. Now, this is another reason why I don't give them any pass on the whole military aspect, is because now Holdo is supposed to be this outstanding commander, like, oh my God, the stuff that legends are going to be talked about and everything like that. Well, I'm sorry, she became the most inept commander out there. So first and foremost, she goes in and she talks down Poe. She dresses down Poe, right? And to me, that scene was kind of a little bit odd, because this is at a critical moment. This is where, when you're coming in and you're taking on leadership, you need to start rallying your troops. You need to get your all hands on deck. Like, you don't have the pleasure of just coming in and trying to get a feel from the troops, trying to get a consensus, and all that. And as you know, I was a military commander. I had to go and I was a leader at wartime. So I'm familiar with what it's like to come in and grab troops and have to put them in harm's way. And the way she went about this was kind of weird. It just seemed to me the scene was about, I'm going to show him, it's time to show, the man that I'm in charge, and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, it's cool to get your subordinate leaders in line, but you don't do that by making them being antagonistic from the start. Because this was what eventually led to other problems in the film. So she dresses down Poe, and she stays the course. She stays the course that was set before she took over, right? We're going to stay out of range until we figure this out. But all the while, she's supposed to be hatching this plan, a plan that she didn't seem to brief her main commanders, her high-ranking, and Poe is, a lot of people have been arguing about this. No, Poe is a high-ranking officer in the Resistance. He is not a peon. He's not some pilot. First of all, he's a pilot, and if going even by our standards in the military, all pilots who are U.S. military, all pilots are officers. All pilots. They're either warrant or they're going to be commissioned officers.
Yep.
Right. You don't have you don't really have enlisted pilots. So that automatically he is someone that needs to be brought into the fold. The fact that she didn't do that ultimately led to the failure of her plan.
especially when he came to her asking what the plan was.
Yep.
And that was like, you should tell him. You should tell him. You should tell him that you have this in control. And then, and then from there, it just kind of either blew up or spiraled down,
Right.
however you want to say it.
So, again, that was one of the problems I had. And then we have Finn waking up. So Finn wakes up from his coma from the last movie, and a very weird scene of him running around in a plastic suit. But the thing I didn't like about this too is that a very very big thing in this movie, and it was kind of a theme, was that all the men were either evil, inept, cowards, in some way, and even with all their flaws, they try to push that all these women were right. And the reason this is one reason I say so. When Finn wakes up, his first thought is to go find Rey. Where's Rey? He's going to go find Rey. And so while he's going to the hatch, he encounters Rose. Yeah. So first of all, I don't believe in beauty at any size. I think that's bullshit. I think the idea that we want to push plus size or chunky ass people and pretend that they look good is retarded. But that sums up Rose. Her sister, Asian hottie. Rose, not so much. But we're supposed to push that because we're supposed to show that we're more diverse and accepting. And I really don't give a fuck about that.
Speaking of diverse and accepting, why do you believe that Rose was cast the way she was?
So there's many theories about this, but the one I heard that seems to make the most sense is that they wanted to. So China is actually the biggest consumer of movies outside the United States, and one of the things that they wanted to do was make sure that this appealed to a Chinese market. So they added an Asian to the cast. But the problem with that, and I know Americans have a problem with this, but and sometimes Asians as well, to be honest. The actress, I believe, she's not Chinese, she's Vietnamese.
And there's a huge rivalry between the two.
Yeah, and those are not the same. So that some people have speculated that that's also another reason why this has not been doing as well as it should in China. But again, it's only theory. I don't have any hard evidence against that. Anyway, so Rose comes up and it shows, she basically zaps Finn as being a coward trying to run away and yada, yada, yada. But the thing I didn't like about another aspect of Rose that would seem sort of weird, where in this Mary Sue syndrome tries to keep going, is the fact that the First Order has this way of tracking, the ships through hyperspace, through their light speed. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how they're doing it, but she comes up with a way to stop it.
Well, she instantly knew the basics of how they would have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like instantly, like, oh, they have to do it this way. And then the only way to do that is because this ship would have to do that and blah, 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 blah. We have to do it in this process, blah, blah, blah. To where she essentially had it all figured out. And there was no, like, if you had it all figured out, why couldn't you just do something from your end or...
Yeah. Well, and that's a problem, and that's kind of like the Star Trek syndrome as well at times, like for the older one, where you would get something that's like, oh, we've never encountered this before, but instantly we found a way to deal with it, and it's like that. No, that doesn't even make sense. That's kind of stupid. So we go, and this whole thing leads with her, and then Poe, Finn, and Rose hatched this scheme to go find a code breaker that's on a casino planet, so that he could get them past the shields and they can disable the tracking device. It was about 30 or 45 minutes of the movie that could have just been cut out.
Well, not just that. Like, you could have kept that and then actually did some character development in that role. You know, the entire Casino Royale esque, horse race track type scene, pointless. The entire thing was pointless. The entire thing was pointless.
The whole thing was pointless because you really didn't, going. It just, it was Finn getting a sociology lesson from Rose. Oh, this is where they grew up. They kept us, and like no one gives a shit.
No. It was these people are powerful because they're profiting off of the war. Which the Benicio del Toro character, I actually liked his character. Yeah, because he was the real guy on there. He was like I could help you. Oh, no, you don't want it? Okay, I'll leave, right? So he got out of the cell. And then, like a true kind of rogue-esque character, he stole the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then he essentially explained to them that, oh yeah, the person who the ship belonged to was selling to both sides. So don't think that anyone's at fault. Like, these guys aren't supplying our enemy; they're supplying everyone.
Yeah.
So
you're hating on them because
they're making money.
Yeah, you're hating on them because they're making money. It was a sort of little jab at the rich, like these people are rich. And,
well, not just the rich. I think it was also a jab at like the military-industrial complex. Yeah. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too deep in that, but it was just the warmongering and the profiteering off of war and. Anyway, but I feel like that was more of that entire scene, the entire section of the movie was just a social statement. It was just
we could have done without.
Oh, we could. Oh man, there could have been so much more character development. There could have been so much more story development.
So here's the ultimate thing, and granted, let's be honest, the theme of the Last Jedi is failure. That's the overarching theme of this whole movie is failure.
It is, yeah.
And now, don't get it wrong. Like in the even previous trilogies, the second movie was always that part where there was some downfall. Like the rebellion got knocked down a notch. There was some downfall. There was something that brought everyone down, and then the last movie was where everything was brought back up.
Yeah, it's like the underdog story, right? So, but that's good though. Like that for story wise, that's good because it creates a dilemma in the overarching story that the protagonists have to overcome, or they have to beat the odds, kind of thing. But it was just the entire thing was just really poorly written, I think.
So now we're gonna start wrapping this up and where the other nonsense comes from. So we can go by the how you buy your shield in slices, but so they all find they get there, they fail to do the missions, they get captured and all that stuff like that, blah blah, and we get to Phasma.
Man, I was really hoping for Brianna Tarth to be an awesome character.
What a waste!
Yeah,
a waste of a character, a waste of a scene. That was and for the build up they gave her, for the build up they gave Phasma, they undersold it. And it's just like it. Well, now I undersold it. They just did nothing with it.
Especially in the first movie, like there was no defining moment for her. All she did was act like a commander by saying that by quote unquote taking charge of someone, and then when she was taken hostage, she completely complied. There was absolutely zero.
She immediately
rebellion.
rolled over.
Yeah,
yeah. So all right, so the ending, getting to the end part. So Holdo's, and we could talk about her sacrifice and all that, but that's not. But her plan, which was funny because once Poe, and we skipped the mutiny and everything else, but once Poe found out what the plan was, all right, he had no problem with it. He went along. Bitch, you should have done that from the start.
Which means that there would have been no casino scene.
Exactly. And their plan would have succeeded because the only reason that her plan failed is because
of the scoundrel. Yeah, sold him out.
DJ ended up being, he sold him out to the First Order. So we get on the planet that's supposed to be the snow planet that we're supposed to remember for Empire Strikes Back, but it's not snow, it's salt. and it bleeds because the ground is red.
It's Hoth, by the way, and the snow planet was
Yes,
Hoth.
I was gonna say. So now we get to the next part that I think is stupid. So they get to the base, they bring down the walkers and everything like that, and they get some land speeders and they're gonna fight them off because the First Order brings down a weapon that will blow the doors off of the rebel base and effectively be able to go in and slaughter everyone inside. And Finn is about to sacrifice himself to take out this weapon and effectively save everybody, or at least buy them time to, come up with something. But in the very last minute, Rose knocks him out of the way and saves him, and she delivers the retarded line, which doesn't make sense because you just stopped him from destroying the thing that was going to help the bad guys kill everyone that you supposedly care about. It's like, that didn't even make sense at all. So now to the sweet part of the movie was Luke appearing.
Oh yeah, I didn't even get to that part, but we'll go ahead and push forward. Yeah,
yeah, that was the sweet part of the movie. The whole Luke Skywalker there, and and he gets out, and I like when he gets blasted and the dust settles and he actually brushes it off, and you're like, this is what we've been waiting for.
like he's a badass.
We're like, oh, Luke Skywalker is back, and there's going to be the showdown with Kylo Ren, and it was okay, but it sort of was kind of a letdown because it was another way to show that Rey, and she's going to be the next, she's going to be the next Jedi, because she's able to get, Luke is basically buying time for them to get to the tunnels to get out. Rey, saves everybody by, clearing a path for her using the Force, and they loads everybody in the Falcon and they fly away. Now, and for some reason, this whole thing that Luke dies, it didn't really make sense why it was like, oh, he strained himself. Really?
Yeah, I didn't get that part either.
Yeah,
it wasn't like Yoda. Like he wasn't old.
Yeah, he wasn't like super old like Yoda.
Like he was in well shape because in the early montage when he was getting everything ready, he was fishing and doing all that
places. And
he was very healthy.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that part either, but I felt like they just rushed to close that loop or stop that arc.
We got to get rid of Skywalker, so he dies.
Yeah.
And then. So in another part where so in the end, flying off, you see that Rey has the books from the Jedi Temple. So and everyone's like, oh yeah, so she's gonna rebuild the Jedi Order and all that. And I had a problem with that. So as a lifetime martial artist and researcher and historian, sort of like that, I have a lot of books on martial arts, and in various languages. I mean, in old and even some old. Japanese Makimono and Densho and even some old Chinese books. And I could tell you this, you can't learn from books.
No, not like a martial art or an entire ideology.
Yeah, you can't learn. You need someone to teach you. You need a mentor. Mm-hmm. And they might bring up one in the next movie. We don't know,
But again, if they bring up a new person who has all this knowledge and has no kind of history in the storyline, and it's just going to be like another Snoke, but like, but light side.
Yeah.
No, but like that would be horrible. That would be horrible writing. That would be like the entire plot would break. I feel like because you're essentially just starting to throw elements into this pie, hoping that it bakes right. And, you're not doing the story, much less your fans. You're not doing the story justice, like as a story in general, not just Star Wars. But it just doesn't make fucking sense.
Yeah. So and that's basically my breakdown. And now I actually skipped over some parts because for the sake of time and brevity. But there are several little things that just that kind of like didn't really. So for instance, Snoke, the death of Snoke. To me, was one of the most anticlimactic and poorly written thing because it seems like the people forgot. I really think they were throwing things to the wall and seeing what stuck because for Kylo Ren to kill Snoke, he manipulates Rey lightsaber that's sitting next to him to turn, and then he activates it using the Force, and it penetrates him, and then he pulls it forward, which bisects him, cuts him in half. So much wrong with that. One, it's been established all throughout Star Wars canon that someone who is very Force sensitive knows when someone else is using the Force, right?
Yeah.
So as powerful as Snoke was, what we were led to believe Snoke was, how did he not know that Kylo Ren was manipulating the lightsaber when he knew when Rey was trying to use the Force to get the lightsaber? Why wouldn't he have been like, hey, I feel, someone using the Force around here. What the hell's going on? Oh, man, Kylo, stop. It seemed like for him to be that powerful, and they're like, oh, he was distracted. Distracted my ass.
No, he was not distracted. And my problem with that is that the fight that should have happened between the two of them, Rey and the fight that should have happened, Rey and Kylo versus Snoke, like those two versus Snoke, that would have been a really good fight. If they would have,
that would also made more sense.
It would have made a great sense, because then, let's say, obviously they would have killed him in like legitimate combat, not being sneaky like that, and we wouldn't be talking about it right now, except probably how awesome it was.
Yeah. Semi because
the choreography. Yeah. But then the Royal Guards jump in, right? And then you'll have to fight the Royal Guards. And that could have been easily two fantastic fight scenes. Both good to look at, and it could have showed off character and combat progression in both of the characters. I mean, you could have shown something, but instead it seemed the execution of Snoke seemed unplanned, almost like the writers just wrote it in. To where it was like we only have 5 seconds to execute him. He's dead. And it just wasn't. I don't know. Like, again, there could be so many good things to say if there were good things to say.
Well, you know what? I will give another good thing to say. The movie looks beautiful.
It's like
visually,
4K,
visually it looks like a very good movie. And that's pretty much where I'm going to end with my good things about this movie.
Okay. I mean, man, like, so do you have anything else? I know you have a lot, but do you have anything else that you want to
But to wrap it up for the time, I think, I hit the major points I wanted to hit about why I dislike this movie and why I think it was not a good... To me, it's just not a good Star Wars movie. It is not to fit into the pre-established lore.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know that they were trying to start with the clean slate and everything, but if they would have done that, if they would have set that up a little bit better and ended all the questions and loose ties, because you didn't even get to Rey's parentage and stuff like that, or what Kylo Ren says, which I think that's bullshit. Like, I have my own theory on that, but you have that, and it's just like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like,
and if that is the case, if that is the case, and what Kylo Ren says about her parents is true, that makes Rey look even worse.
It really does. But I mean, that would fit in with the quote unquote chosen one theory, where it doesn't matter what your parentage is, that you are you are the chosen one, and then you would bring the one balance to the Force. But that's entirely different.
She wasn't born of the midichlorians.
She wasn't. That took me a second. I was like, oh shit, what is that? Oh, I got you. Yeah, so as you can see, us here at DOG, we thought it looked great. 4K, 1080, IMAX. It looks fantastic. Once you dig deeper into the story of The Last Jedi,
it sucks.
It sucks. It's full of plot holes. It's full of what is the word? Continuity issues.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent.
Yeah, very, very inconsistent. And that's the thing is, once you start thinking of how things should go, or what characters, I don't want to say should be doing, because in that you presume things about the characters and how they should be written, but you have the stereotypical roles and how these type of characters often progress, and maybe they're going for something new on trying to break that mold, but you don't do it as dramatically as they did because it just doesn't make sense, you know. Like Rey is a flawed character from her inception. Kylo Ren is probably the best person I can see right now. Kylo Ren and Finn. They
And-
are my two favorites right now. Poe is up there as well.
Yeah, Poe would probably
but
be
he
my
just doesn't
third.
get enough screen time. I think he has a really good story arc though. Being kind of like the fly boy who is quote unquote kind of banished and then comes back again as the savior, or he wants to be the savior and they keep kind of pulling him back a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's just man, like I'm gonna have to keep watching the movie to just find all the shit that's wrong with it. And you kind of like broke my glass ceiling when it comes to the gravity and space piece. Like I didn't even like notice that when I was watching it, and now I'm just like, que cazzo, you know what the fuck, man? It's it just doesn't make any other kind of sense. Especially how the bombers were using like World War II style bombers,
Yeah.
where you're just like cluster bombing all the shit, and
And that was another thing too. I love another thing that they got me is like choice in weapons. I was like, wait a minute, we've established you have these torpedoes, you have all these long range weapons. I was like, why the fuck do we have bombers for spaceships? For spaceships.
yeah. No, I think they were trying to equate it more to what we currently know, but really,
Yeah.
you know, an
Now,
entire
go on.
universe was established that you can play around in.
You've seen you've seen them use gravity based weapons in the other Star Trek films, but they were on a planet. They weren't in space. So remember when they were looking for the Millennium Falcon when they were in the hole? And
You mean the Star Wars ones? You said Star Trek earlier.
Oh, I meant
So
Star Wars.
I started
Star Wars.
thinking about
Yeah, when in Empire they were looking for the Millennium Falcons, they were actually bombing
the
surface.
asteroid, right?
The asteroid.
Yeah. No, I like I get
big
that.
asteroid, you know.
Yeah,
so-
when that worm came out, fucking
Yeah.
whatever. No, I get that. I get that part, and it's just really hard to wrap my head around how many issues I have with this movie. When there is already so much continuity and so much backstory to pull from. You know, you're already in this world. There's already so many pre-established parameters. The fact that they veered so far off that is it's wild to me. Like I don't understand, especially when now they're owned by Disney. So Disney, don't tell me Disney doesn't have good storytellers. You know, and the fact that like they couldn't draw from one military consultants or any other kind of consultant that would have given them more realistic views, because we know it's space travel, we know it's in a galaxy far, far away, but when you start making it unrealistic in our eyes, you lose all faith.
Yeah, especially when you deal with a bunch of vets.
Oh, especially then, yeah.
All right, so I guess this is a good time to wrap it up.
It is, and I'm going to take one last drink because I think I have like 2 or 3 drops of whiskey left, maybe. Nah, maybe like a half a drop. That was pointless. Anyway, so thank you guys for joining us at the DOG, and we will see you next time.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Dose Offensive Gentlemen podcast. We want to hear what you got to say, so leave us a comment below and hit that like button. Also, subscribe so you can get your future DOG updates.